Hey guys, so now we're looking at saving and investing options. So this document is a long and complicated document, but it covers important methods of saving and investing that you should know. So I'm not going to read everything, but I am going to go through the broad strokes on this video to try and keep the length down. So first method of saving is called Canada's Savings Bonds, or CSB. And these are bonds that are guaranteed by the government, meaning that the government gives you a high level of safety. And these bonds offer interest that are paid back to you at maturity. So what happens is, basically, you give the government money in exchange for a document that certifies that you have given them the money. The document also outlines how much money's been given and what interest it will receive and how much interest will be paid to you when the money is paid back to you. So there's no risk here. It's extraordinarily safe because it's guaranteed by the government. So basically, you part ways with money in exchange for more money later. Not that much more, but enough. And it's guaranteed by the government. So this is for people who are very risk averse, saving for short-term goals, stuff like that. From our lesson, you can see it's pre-career, early career. So this is the sort of people that would like to use these. FYI, liquidity is how quickly something can be turned into cash. So because these bonds, these documents, are guaranteed by the government, they're almost as good as cash itself. So they're very liquid. Again, low risk, low return. Next is corporate bonds. So it's the same thing, except it's made with companies instead of the government. What was I going to say? Well, it's the same thing. Where to purchase depends on the corporations that you're buying bonds from. Level of risk varies because corporations, as you know, have limited liability. So the level of guarantee is less with them. Usually, return is a little higher, but that comes with the whole role of risk return. Fairly liquid, but not as liquid as government bonds. Next is stocks, which we talked a lot about. Hopefully you watched that video on how the stock market works. So you're purchasing part ownership of a company. The value of that piece of ownership is very fluid. It changes minute by minute. But, overall, it tends to be fairly stable depending on the company. The hope is that the value will grow as time passes, but that will depend on how the company performs and what people think of the company, and, of course, what happens in the world. As I mentioned in my last video, COVID-19 has damaged or destroyed a lot of stocks in the stock market because a lot of companies have come to a grinding halt. And so people lose faith in the company to recover, or they just don't want to lose their money, so they sell all their shares of ownership. Very liquid, can be converted to cash quickly through a broker, of course. A broker is someone who invests money on your behalf, by the way. Level of risk varies. There are ways where you can have a broker buy stocks for you, which is generally considered safer because these brokers have a certain level of training and instinct, and they want to make money off your money, so they have your interest at heart. You may have seen a movie called Wolf on Wall Street. It's rated above your age, so I can't endorse that you watch it, but it's about how stockbrokers used to have very low accountability. Now there are more laws in place. It's not guaranteed, though. You shouldn't get in business with someone that you don't know or trust. Now, again, risk will depend on the company and how much you're investing and stuff like that. Check out, this is something, if you're going to go for stocks, they can have high return, but it's something you definitely want to learn more about. Stocks is a game that you really need to learn a lot about in order to participate in. Mutual funds is where a pool of people, so a bunch of people, pool their money together and then have a broker manage that money for them. And usually investments are quite diverse. There are different types of mutual funds. So there are mutual funds with low risk, low return, medium risk, medium return, and high risk, high return. There are also mutual funds that invest in certain kinds of companies. So if you want your money to go towards environmentally sustainable companies, there are mutual funds for that. So level of risk varies. It depends on what kind of mutual fund you want to get into. Although most mutual funds are safer than investing on your own, but you do pay a fee to be part of the mutual fund pool. So there's that. Mutual funds are not as liquid as stocks because you're involved with a pool of people and your money is being controlled by a broker, so you need to get your money back through them, so it's not as liquid as stocks are. Guaranteed Investment Certificate, or GIC. This is an investment that offers a guaranteed rate of return over a fixed period. This is most commonly issued by banks. So basically you give the bank money, they promise to give it back to you in a certain amount of time with a certain amount of interest. And they basically use your money to make investments in the meantime. And then they pay it back to you with interest once the time comes. There are two types. Cashable means that you can turn your thing into cash, your GIC into cash before the maturity date arrives. This is something it depends. There is a penalty to do this. But you know, if you're thinking of buying a house in like a year or two, but you want to invest your money, it might not be a bad thing to have it cashable, so you can get some of it out if you really need to. But usually, if you're going to do a GIC, you want to make it a non-cashable or locked in. So the money is gone. You can get it back, but there's much higher penalties than cashable. And that's if you're sure you're not going to need the money for a while. So a GIC would be a very good way of investing some money, putting it away so that when it comes back to you, it's worth more, and it's fairly safe. Registered Education Savings Plan. So there's a specific type of savings that is for your child's education. I'll let you read this. It basically you're saving for college. There's lots of links here for you to check out. It's very safe. It's government backed. So it's kind of like a government bond, except it's for the purpose of education. However, given its safety and the return that you can get, it's I think these are a little better return than government bonds. However, because of that, there is a maximum of $50,000 that you can invest. Because of the whole little higher return, they try to block that so that people don't take advantage of it. Because again, the government is paying you back. It's not, just coming out of luck. The government is giving this back to you. And so they do that to protect their own interests. They don't want, 1 million people investing and then taking all that out at once for however much they invest. They're not very liquid. So you only, again, you want to do this when you're saving specifically for education, or for something, legally it's supposed to be education, so I'll just stop there. Okay, this is a really popular one. Registered Retirement Savings Plan, RRSP. Your parents will probably talk to you about this. It's a government-backed, very safe method of saving money with a higher interest rate than your average bank account will have. So just so you know, bank accounts have interest rates, meaning that the more you save and the longer you save it for, you make interest on that. So in other words, the bank pays you a little bit of money to save your money. It's a nice gig. But with this, the savings rate or the interest rate is higher than a normal bank account. However, you can only put so much into this. And in 2017, you could invest 18% of your 2016 reported income, up to a maximum of $26,000. So it's very closely monitored as to how much you can put in. It's also monitored because you can put money away without having to pay tax on it. So I'll explain what that means. There's something called income tax. You've probably heard your parents complain about it. Basically, whenever you get paid money, the government gets a piece of it. And depending on how much money you get, the bigger the piece the government gets. Not that cool. Although it's necessary. So people don't like it, but it's necessary. If you've ever wondered where money comes from to pay for our roads and our police officers, our teachers, our firefighters, our hospitals, city maintenance, all of these vital services, they come from tax money. So everybody, including me, including your parents, everybody, when they are paid a salary, they have to pay income tax legally. If you don't pay it, it's a federal crime. And that tax money is used to basically keep the country running. And so what you can do is put up to 18% or $26,000 into an RRSP, and you don't have to pay taxes on that. So there's some incentive there. Now, when you withdraw all the money when you've retired, you have to pay tax on it then, but it's like a special tax rate, I think. But there's an advantage to doing that. So the reason why it's so strictly regulated with this clause here is because otherwise people would just, invest all of their income so they don't pay any income tax and then take it out. And then the government wouldn't have any money to make stuff happen with, So there's, there has to be some regulation. But the government recognizes that it's important for people to save for their retirement so that when they don't have a job because they're too old, they have money to live off of. And so this is an incentive to save money so that when you retire, you have money to live off of, aside from your pension. If you don't know what a pension is an amount of money that the government and you contribute to every year until you retire, and then you get pieces of that money every 2 weeks. So it's like a paycheck, except you've earned it already. Very safe. It's government backed. Not liquid. There are penalties if you take this stuff out, and taxes apply if you withdraw early. Yeah, so there's special rules. So it's still taxed to an extent, and if you take it out early, it's taxed. And the reason for that is because otherwise people would just deposit all their money in and then withdraw it the next day, and there's your loophole, right? So this is done to stop that loophole from happening. It's recommended for everyone. You should definitely look into this. Real estate. So buying property and then selling it at a later date to make money. So this is a risky market because if the house you buy has problems, you can lose a lot of money. If the market goes down, meaning that house prices go down, if you paid more for the house than you sell it for, then you're losing money. That's not good. For example, right now, house markets are at an all-time high. Houses have never cost this much in Ottawa. So the idea is to buy a house, fix it up, and then sell it for more than you bought it. And, that's just another way to make money. Some people will just buy the house, hold on to it, and then sell it later. It's not liquid because it's hard to sell a house. Nowadays, it's very easy because there's such a low supply. But in general, selling a house requires a lot of paperwork and marketing and lawyers signing papers and stuff. So it's not the easiest thing to do. Again, level of risk varies on the market very much. This is only recommended for people who have tons of money. So if you're actually going to invest in this and this is your goal, that's great. It's not something you should do until you're in your 30s and you're making a lot of money. There are ways to do it earlier, but they carry an incredible amount of risk. And right now, a lot of people are buying houses and cars and stuff they can't afford, meaning that they're spending a lot more than they're making. And with what's happened with COVID-19 is these people have lost their jobs and they can't pay for all this stuff that they bought with money they don't actually have. So they're having to sell all this stuff, or they will once the COVID-19 benefits run out. And then they're not gonna be in a good place. Anyway, real estate, there's lots of TV shows about it. It's a very flashy market, but anyway, I spent enough time on that. Whoa. Collectibles. This is the cool one. This is a neat way to start out if you want. If you're going to do things like cards and toys and stuff, there can be a lot of money in it, but you really got to know. You can't just look at a toy and think, oh, that'll be popular. You have to understand, the lore of the world that the toy exists in, and you've got to, understand the market. You've got to understand the people buying it. How liquid? Not very, because you can only sell these things when they become valuable, if they ever become valuable. So you need a lot of patience. Tax-free savings account. This is another big one. TFSA. It's kind of like an RRSP, except it's not for the purposes of retirement. You can use it as that, and a lot of people do. Basically, you're allowed to contribute an annual limit of $5,500 every year. So again, this is the whole thing where money you put in here is tax-free, but it's regulated. And when you take the money out, you need to pay what's called capital gains. I won't explain what that is, but it's basically a tax on the money that you make. Withdrawals from the TFSA are tax-free, but you can only do it in a certain amount of time. And there's some kind of legislation around it. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but when you take the money out, there are things you need to do with it. And it's a procedure. You can't just go to a bank and take out your TFSA money. You've got to, meet some people and sign paperwork and stuff. But it's another way to shelter money from tax. So that's nice. And you don't need to save it for retirement, which is also nice. So you can use this for whatever the hell you want. Risk is low. Liquid is high because it's money that you're saving. This is great to start early. If you want to buy a nice car, like I'm saving one because I want to buy a Mustang. My goal is to buy a 1967 fastback Mustang. If you want to check that car out, Google it. They're expensive though; they're not cheap. So I'm putting money aside every year, and then eventually, when I'm in my 40s, I'll have enough, and then I'll have a kick-ass car. So yeah, that's my goal, and that's what I'm saving with that. But anyway, that's it. So these are the different methods of saving and investing. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. But yeah, if you have any questions, email me. I will see you in the next video. Office hours at between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. So if you want to chat, hit me up there. I'll see you later. All right, bye.